You're on.
Hello everybody, I'm John Naparadney, the co-host for this, our Lake of the Ozarks free fishing seminars that we have bi-weekly now. And what I've done for the past 25 years is cover bass tournaments for BASS and Central Pro-Am, and I've been a press observer for the Bassmaster Classic pros for 10 years, ran with the pros in the Classic. And through the years I've written a bunch of articles for Bassmaster, Bass Times, and Fisherman and the like. And from all that experience I've gathered together, and Skyhorse Publishing wanted me to do a book, and I did one on 101 bass tips, basically from that all the experience that I had and the riding with the pros. And the book is available on my website, jnoutdoors.com, for $15. You can get an autographed copy. However, if you show up at the seminar sometime, it's $10, a discount there. So. I used to do these seminars at St. Louis County Parks, and they discontinued the program, so I thought, oh, maybe we ought to start them down here. So I got in touch with Bass and Bob, and he's got all these pros working with them now, and he's setting up all that, and I'll let Bass and Bob explain what he's got going on now.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it, buddy. You know, John doesn't give himself enough credit, to be honest with you. John is very well known in the fishing industry as a journalist, and he's also a great fisherman. So you can get on JN Outdoors and find all kinds of great fishing tips, information for lakes all over the country. He's very well respected all over the country. You kind of semi-retired now, John?
I forgot to mention Bass Resource.
Yeah. John also writes for Bass Resource, which you can, there's a link on bassandbob.com to Bass Resource. In addition to being a journalist and writing the 101 bass fishing tips, he wrote another book called The Fishing Guide.
The Lake of the Ozarks Fishing Guide.
Lake of the Ozarks Fishing Guide, which John is out of. So I have about 25 of them, which is, you know, they're a collector's item. I refer to it all the time. Fishermen like Guido Hibden, Terry Blankenship, many others of the pros over the course of years. The information is still highly applicable. The fish really don't change that much. I mean, the patterns are pretty much the same. It's a stick bait in the wintertime. It's a jig here and there. It's a worm here and there. But there's some really unique techniques in that book also. So that's available on bassandbob.com. A couple other thoughts. So thank you very much, John, for putting this together. Thank you for reaching out to me a few years ago. Thank you, everybody who's here tonight. We appreciate the big crowd.
We're about 55, 60.
Yeah, there's still parking cars.
Yeah, parking.
So, and then thank you to the 1,000+ members that actually view these seminars on bassandbob.com. We really appreciate that. We enjoy bringing you information from these pros on Lake of the Ozarks. Keep in mind, if you're not registered already, we have our Summer Bass Sizzler in August this year, the middle of August. This year it'll be out of Red Oak Resort, a 2-day tournament, $250 entry fee. We always do breakfast and barbecue sandwiches or something like that. Breakfast during the morning, barbecue sandwiches or something to feast on during the weigh-in. This year it'll be out of Red Oak Resort versus Ohana, just because we wanted to change it up just a little bit. Get away from all the boat traffic. The entry fee is a lot lower. We also have our Missouri Invitational starting November the 15th through the 18th at Old Kinderhook. And for those of you who have fished the Missouri Invitational in the past, or last year as a co-angler, you are automatically invited. We just ask you to register and pay by August the 15th. We have a waiting list already of amateurs, not just from this region or this area, but from all over the United States. It's become a pretty popular tournament. So if you want in on the Missouri Invitational, please register and pay by August the 15th. We have a great lineup of pros, in addition to Jim Dill and a lot of the other pros that we've had in the past, Mike McClellan, James Watson, Marcus Sikora. We have kind of cut the field just a little bit so that we have some headroom for some additional pros, and we have some very well-known national pros that will be coming this year. So it's opportunity to fish. We changed our payout schedule, so you have an opportunity to make make money on all 3 days of the event. And it's a fun event, and you get to rub elbows and have the opportunity to fish with a pro fisherman, which many of us don't have the opportunity to do. So check that out for sure. Our seminar series, I got myself totally confused. Thank you, John Neparadny. So we're doing these Monday seminars every other Monday, but when it falls on a holiday, we'll do 2 weekends in a row. I didn't even think we were gonna have a seminar tonight. Thank you, John. And then,
I looked at the text and it's like, okay, we got one today.
yeah, we got one tonight, and thank God, because we have one of the best here, James Dill, which I'll introduce here in a minute. And then, because these seminars are so popular, and all our Bass and Bob members love them, is that we're gonna continue the seminar series through the end of the year in October, November, December, the first Monday of every month. And we'll do them indoors. And our indoor seminars that we're gonna have during October, November, and December, we have Bill Davenport lined up, Marcus Sikora, and Roger Fitzpatrick. So, and if everybody feels that's of continued interest, we'll just continue to do them during the winter months, every other Monday. So that's our schedule, but I'm very happy tonight to introduce to you, many of you already know, Mr. Jim Dill. James Dill, I don't know, you like James or Jim?
It don't matter.
It
Jim,
don't matter.
James, man.
Call me anything but late for dinner.
Right. Yeah. My mom used to call me James all my life. I hated James, Call me Jim, call me now, I'll go by James most times. I don't know, it doesn't
I don't
matter.
know, it's got a good, James Dill's got a great
Right.
ring to it, I love it.
Right. When we're hanging out, it's Jim,
Yeah.
If it's professional
Formal?
stuff, I guess it's James, yeah.
So we
I
got
don't know.
James Professional and Jim Dill. I couldn't be more lucky that this is actually the anniversary here in July
Is it?
of the 9th year of bassandbob.com. And I reached out to 3 pros, guides, whatever, when I first started bassandbob.com. Those 3 were Wayne Fitzpatrick, who many of you know, who was the founder of Fitz Fishing, James Dill, who we have sitting here with us tonight, and Jack Uxa, one of the very top guys on Lake of the Ozarks. And they all said, sure, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully we provided them with some exposure to their businesses, and at the same time provided all of our Bass and Bob members with some really great information and content. Jim, you've been doing this for 9 years for me.
Yeah, and it
Can
doesn't
you believe that?
doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it's been a good time, and everybody gets along. We've had a lot of good,
Right.
camaraderie with our meetings, our Bass and Bob meetings. We
Our
have,
roundtables, right.
hanging out at Wayne's, or both Jack and I guide quite a bit. And
Yeah.
just the whole deal, all the way to the Missouri, all of it. Every part of it's just been a lot of fun and a pleasure to be involved with. So.
Well, Jim, I appreciate that so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, because when I moved here from Lake of the Ozarks, and I purchased some billboard signs and flew an airplane over to Big
Yeah.
Bass Bash and all this stuff.
I remember the first play, we're like, look at it. Bass Bob, I guess he is serious about this.
So bassandbob.com, your Lake of the Ozarks fishing resource. And there were so many people that were like, who in the heck is this guy from St. Louis that's gonna do a bass fishing
I get it.
website on Lake of the Ozarks? So I knew immediately, I need to surround myself with credibility and credible people, and thank God Jim and Wayne and Jack came on board with me, and that group has expanded to Marcus and Dion and Casey Scanlon and many of the other greats here.
Pretty
at the
much
lake.
everybody. You've done a great job of bringing in new people, new personnel. A lot of these younger guys, coming up through. I mean, these guys are in their 20s and they're just killing it, and being able to get them in there. So you still got some of the, I'll say I'm one of the older guys. We still got our ways that continue to catch fish, but these new guys are bringing a lot to it. And there's a lot of new young guys coming into the sport that are a little quicker with the electronics. We were talking about electronics. They're real quick with them,
Yeah.
and using them, and fishing's just evolving in a away is
Continues
really,
to
really
grow.
neat
Yeah.
to see it.
Well, Jim, you're still one of the absolute legends on Lake of the Ozarks, and you keep up with the electronics, you keep up with your boat stuff. You're one of the very top guides here on the lake, you and Jack Uxa, top guides on the lake. If you're looking for a guide for Lake of the Ozarks, check out Jack or check out Jim Dill or check out Jim's wife Denise Dill. She's amazing. I fished with her before. You have no idea how great she is. She's amazing and she's awesome, a great teacher. Jim's a great teacher as well. Jim has also won many, many tournaments on Lake of the Ozarks. Some very, very big tournaments too. What used to be FLW, now Major League Fishing. He's won many big tournaments on Lake of the Ozarks. He's also won many tournaments and competed very successfully on tournaments all throughout the region and all throughout the country. So we're very blessed to have such an expert like Jim Dill supporting bassandbob.com, delivering this seminar tonight. So we appreciate you, Jim. So we'll go ahead and kick off and say, hey, we're in a 100-degree weather out here.
We're in the middle of summer, that's for sure, and we've been stuck in it for about 3 weeks now, the dog days. Usually we get about, what, maybe a week or so this, 95, 100 degree, and I think we're going into the third week of 95 to 100 every day.
Yeah.
And it's set in, it's same thing every year, we go through this every year. We went from having a lot of current, like we always do, to trickling it down. I just looked here a few minutes ago, I think the 15th may have been the last time they ran any kind of measurable current. I think that was 22,000 cubic foot. Today, we had a big group trip today, and I've been out pretty much every day for the last week without the current. So
Are you wearing your sunscreen?
I'm not. I don't wear much sunscreen. I don't.
I wake up.
I wear hats and glasses and my AFCO sun shirts. I have resorted to that. I'm protecting my skin. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is very important. But I'm doing it with different ways.
I tell people all the time that because I fish a lot on Lake of the Ozarks, 3 to 5 days a week.
Yeah.
That when I wake up in the summertime, first thing I do is put on my sunscreen.
Yeah.
When I wake up in the wintertime, first thing I do is put on
My long johns.
Put on my long johns.
That's pretty close, I mean, I've got a construction background, so I spent many hours and days outside, in the sun. But
tell us a little bit about what's going on. What's going on, and what kind of how do you catch them in this hot water? Whether it's big fish or just getting bites. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we anticipate maybe when things kind of cool down a little bit.
If they cool down a little bit. Well, we're in the middle of summer, no current. So once they shut down the current for any amount of time like they have, fish just notoriously, they just start spreading out. And you've got, like 3 different groups. Some of them go deep. They lay in brush piles and they'll move up and feed. Some of them just suspend out in kind of nowhere land, I call it, out underneath big balls of shad. And then you got a group of them that go to the backs, and they get shallow. So, I could talk to you and tell you about all of them, but it would take a couple of days, So basically,
we got nothing but time.
I'll just tell you kind of just a few things, and then my favorite way to catch them and how I'll go to catch them. And obviously it's different in the summer. If you're looking to go out and just catch fish and have a good time, stay out on Main Lake, hit some big docks, watch your electronics, look for the shad, as that sun gets up high, and that plankton, develops and it comes to the surface, well then the shad come with them, You can get an early bite, obviously up around the bank sometimes for some of these fish that are still roaming the bank from the night. If you're looking to catch just a lot of fish on big docks, Main Lake docks, some wave breaks, things like that, you'll wait until sometimes that sun comes up and that the shad come up with it. You watch your electronics, and you'll see the shad balls. They're down there 12, 15 foot in the mornings, and your fish are down there with them. They're underneath them. Once they move up to the surface, then the fish come with them. So just a little thing we kind of go by if we're looking for numbers. you know, in the summertime, and we're throwing a lot of topwater baits, you know, chug bugs, you know, flukes, things like that, wacky style rigs, a lightweight, you know, around some of these docks. You know, that's just for numbers. We do that a lot of times on trips and things just to fill the trip if someone's just wanting to catch numbers. But what I'm really going to talk to you about today is, say, you know, your tournament size fish or bigger fish. And the way I go about it, you know, obviously in the summertime, after 9, 10 o'clock, boat traffic gets going out there, and it pretty much washes you off the main lake. You can stay out there, you can fish it, but once the boats start going between you and the bank, you know, you're fishing way out off of the bank, way out off a point, and they start going between you and the bank, and the jet skis are buzzing you, and the big cruisers are out. It's a little more than I want to deal with sometimes, so I'll head to the backs, okay, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. I head to the backs right now. There's a big shad spawn has happened, and these shad are starting to venture out a little bit, and you'll start seeing them moving around, and you'll see them out in the middle of the creeks and out on Main Lake, but there's a lot of them right in the middle of the major creeks, and they're starting to get to the very backs. You know, same process with the plankton. It grows prominent in the backs, and it's got a short life cycle. So it grows, you know, things feed on them. It's the base of basically the food chain in the water. You know, the shad basically feed on it. They grow. The bass, catfish, everything else feed on them. So right now, with the lake rough and the water heating up, you either got to go to the bottom pretty deep, like I said, or go to the backs. And I prefer backs. I'm a shallow water fisherman. I fish shallow in the winter. I fish shallow in the fall. I fish shallow in the summer. You know, it's a little trickier.
Define shallow.
Shallow, 6 foot and less. Okay, so that's shallow. I don't care.
The backs of creeks or anywhere, whether it's main lake or
secondary
points or.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say within a creek. Okay. You know, there's obviously, we all know there's times you go out to the main lake and you fish because you can't beat it. When they're running current, running water, you're wasting your time doing anything but being out on main lake. Okay, we're past that now. We're in the summer, so I'm going to the backs, you know, and I'm looking for shad. I'm looking for these big balls of shad. Some days you'll see a variety of just small groups of them spread out through the creeks, and then some days you'll see big groups of them, and bigger size of them. You'll see some, you know, right now we've got them from 1.25 inches to 4 or 5 inches, you know, back in there.
Yeah.
And you're kind of looking for, you know, the ones that are active, they're moving, and obviously you really pay attention to what's going on feeding wise. You know, if you see bass busting on them, chasing them, you know, they're feeding on shad. You know, that's what they're doing right now. But, you know, the shad are moving to the backs. They've cut down the current, so they're moving back there. They're feeding on the plankton that grows in the very backs. If you get to the backs right now, you'll notice there's a lot of grass. There's a lot of green plants in the water. You know, the lake was so low this spring for a while, and a lot of these plants got to grow. And then that water came up in the last, what do you say, probably 3-4 weeks at least, and it's up in this green stuff. Well, that's oxygen. You know, you know, it's got the whole the oxygen thing in the very backs, and that's what the bass are back there for, or not necessarily the bass, but the shad. They're going back there. It's good, healthy water. The plankton's back there. The oxygen level's up back there, and they're back there. Once you get to the backs and you start seeing these shad balls, and you just go, you know, start and just keep going till you start seeing the shad, a good amount of shad. You'll see them on the surface. You'll see them on your graph. Once you see, you know, large amounts of shad, that's when I'll slow down and I'll really start fishing. I say 6 foot. I'll probably start maybe 10 foot of water, and I'll start. You know, some of my favorite baits, you know, is a little square bill. You know, just to kind of start locating. You know, and there are a couple of different I like the shad colors, and I like the bluegill color. I was talking about shad, so I better stick with that real quick here before I get sidetracked. You know, I get pretty anxious in the summer because that's when things start happening I like to do, and that's fishing shallow. So, you know, if I think they're feeding on shad, I'll pick up a crankbait like this. You see that is identical replica of a shad. You know, it's got the dark back, it's got the sides. It might even have a little bit of wounded, you know, red looking on it. You know, but that little square bill there, it'll run, you know, 1.5 to 3 foot. And basically I'll start on these docks, you know, 3/4 way back in these creeks, and I'll throw it to the shallow side, which is the bank side, and I'll just burn it. I'll burn it right down the sides of these, usually the shady side. If you have a little bit of breeze or a little bit of wind, that'll help. You know, you'll want to work that side. If you can get the shade and the wind on the same side, you're in great shape then. You know, basically you just throw it to the front, and I'll just burn it right down the side and see if I can get.
And I know you call the front of docks towards the back, towards the bank.
The front of the dock to me is the one you approach.
Is the bank.
The back
The bank
is the
side.
bank.
Yeah.
Yes. So I don't know, is that what you?
Yeah,
said there?
because I know.
Yeah, I know,
a
different
lot of
people look at
A
it-
lot of people think the front of docks are
The shallow side.
the deeper side. But
Right.
you're talking about the shallow side of it. When you talk about to the front of the dock, you're
Right.
talking about the bank side of the dock.
The bank side, but that's
Yeah.
just because I'm approaching it from the water.
Yeah, I get
you know.
it. Yeah.
You know,
Makes
so
sense.
either way, we'll say the shallow side and the deep side.
Got it.
But when you're
Perfect.
fishing in 5 foot of water, which is which, you know?
Perfect. Yeah, right.
But either way, and you can run these square bills down the side and maybe locate where a concentration of fish are. You know, if you start catching them in 10 foot and a lot of them, and then you get back in 5 foot and you quit getting bites, well then I'm going to back out and I'm really going to concentrate on that depth. Now if it's obviously 5 foot of water and I start catching a few fish, that's where I'm going to concentrate my efforts. You know, and basically what I'm trying to do is cut down my looking or searching time or fishing time. Because when you're fishing in the backs and you get these shallow docks and you start flipping, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to idle back there. A lot of them are no wake. A lot of time to get back there, and it takes a lot of time to dissect these docks and fish them. So the sooner you can kind of figure out what depth they're relating to, the better you're going to be. You know, so I'll usually use like a square bill to kind of locate some fish. And once I do that, then I'm going to slow down. You know, then I'm going to slow
Like
down.
You mentioned you're kind of burning it, so you're not like slow cranking it.
No, I'm pretty much, I'm a good steady getting it going, because that bait, you know, like I said, it's only going to go down, you know, 1.5 to maybe 3 foot. And that's just below the foam, you know, that these fish are hiding underneath. They're all underneath in the shade in that darkest area of the docks, you know, and they're waiting for all these shad basically out here in the center to get blown over to them or venture over to them, and you know, once they get close, it'll get their attention. They'll run out and grab them a mouthful. So that's basically what this is mimicking, is a shad that's broke loose from the pack, and it's easy meal, easy prey. You know, the big bulk shad balls are probably a little bit intimidating to a bass compared to one isolated, you know, one that broke loose from the pack. So, you know, it's just a good search bait, you know, to like I said, find.
Jim, you mentioned docks in that particular pattern. What about when you get to kind of the backs of shallow, I don't even want to say shallow creeks, but you get to the backs of creeks, areas like maybe the Glaze or the Gravois or the Nanglas, where there's maybe not as many docks. Does that pattern still hold true in the areas that don't have docks?
Yeah, it does. You're looking more for, like, say like in way up the Glaze or up the Nangwas or really in any big major creek, you get to the backs, there's a lot of washed in logs, laydowns,
Right.
root wads, maybe just a brush pile that's rolled in or something. So then you're kind of concentrating working those isolated cover, you
So
know.
some kind of cover.
Some sort of cover. Not very often are you gonna just find them out roaming out in the sun. Bass just aren't made that way. They want something over their head, you know, they wanna get next to something, they wanna get, you know, to create an ambush point or basically get themselves hidden from the prey. It's just the way they're built, it's just the way they are. I don't care what lake you go to, that's how they act, you know.
Right.
So then, you know, but basically, to answer your question, it's the same principle, you're just different cover.
Look, different cover.
Different cover, you
Jim,
know.
I had a question about creeks that we're talking about.
Mhm.
I think there's like two different type of creek coves. There's some that are active, that have water coming in all the time, and then there's some that are dry creeks that just come in when there's rain or whatever.
Right.
Do you fish both of those type or one?
I do. I fish them both. You know, you kind of got to check them out. A lot of these creeks, just what you said. You know, if you get rain and they're flowing, obviously that's great. That's bringing in oxygen, it's bringing in food, it's bringing in current, a little bit of everything. Some of these big major creeks, you can't see it and it looks dry in the back, but you've got some underwater springs, you know, that may be coming in back there. You know, they may be, you know, just some good, fresh, cool water. So I'll check them out. But what you said, I'll try to concentrate on the major ones that have a good flow of water all the time.
Yeah.
Those are obviously going to be your best, you know, just for what we said. You know, it's going to, it might keep the water a little cooler, but it's going to definitely be a lot more oxygenated. And that's what the shad need. You know, obviously shad need a lot of oxygen. So I would stick to the major big ones that have a lot of water flow back in. Right now, you'd be pretty hard pressed to find some of them, other than like, say you go the Gravois. You go all the way up to Gravois there, up in Gravois Mills, and you look there, there's a steady flow of water coming in back there. Up the Glaze, same way. Up the Niangua, that creek's running. Those are major creeks. That
You got like Bollinger.
Yeah, you got Bollinger has a good flow. Cartwright has, you know, all them big creeks up there. Pearson, all them creeks up there, you know. And then when you get down lake, even, you know, on the North Shore, some of them major creeks. So a lot of these creeks they're kind of built the same. You know, you'll get different water clarity in them, plant growth, whatever, you know. But either way, you know, I'm gonna look at a major one that's, if it's got water coming in it, that's gonna be your best ones, anyways. You know, so
Jim, if you got a straight dock and you run them right down the straight dock, but then if you got, you know, the outboards with the, you know, boats or whatever, or sea-doos that are on those docks, do you run them around that, or, you know, how? Because there's a lot of that.
there is a lot, and basically, I think what he's getting at is, you know, the docks aren't created equal. You don't just have a square structure a lot of times. A lot of times you got a lot of offsets, a lot of corners, I call them, like a corner between a dock and a jet ski lift, how it protrudes out. Maybe, you know, a boat lift inside there. You know, you got all these different angles, different shades, different corners. Definitely, you know, I'm gonna first just try for the easy fish, you know,
Right.
and just throw right down the side and bring it right next to that foam. Maybe let it, you know, bend your. You can adjust some of these square bills to run to the right or left, and if you can run it, let it kind of run underneath that dock. You know, bump some of that foam or bump some brush or maybe some of these anchor poles that a lot of them have. You know, you can make it divert or bounce or erratic action. It's going to create a bite too. But basically, to your question, definitely, you know, I'm gonna run right down the sides first, but then I'm gonna run the corners and even the shallow corners if you can work it. If there's not cables, you know, coming right off the corner, if they kind of come in maybe 6 foot from the corners, and then you run your cables, or some of them will have the shallow water poles that basically the docks are mounted on these poles, and they go up and down with the water fluctuation. But yeah, definitely work the corners, the offsets, the jet skis, how it sits out there, you know. And that's going to be a little more once I find some fish, like what depth with the crankbait, then I'm going to slow down and really pick those apart with, like, what we'll talk about next is flipping. Once you figured out kind of where you think these fish are, what depth wise, whether it be 8 foot, 4 foot or 2 foot, then I'm gonna slow down and then I'm gonna go in and start flipping. You know, and there's basically 2 things I'll flip, and it's a 1/4 ounce Crack Gator Shaky Pro head. And usually I'll put something really simple on it, like this Zoom Mag Finesse worm, you know, just like that. And this is a little more of a shad. This is called a blue flash, green pumpkin blue flash. Now really, you know, it kind of looks like a shad. Okay, it's got a lot of blue flash and it looks kind of purpley, green pumpkin. And you know, the 1/4, it flips real easy. And when you're flipping shallow water, you don't necessarily.
What size head? You
That's
said
a 1/4.
1/4
This is 1/4. You know, there's times when they're extremely aggressive. That's a little later in the year. You know, when there's a big migration of big fish and a lot of shad back there, you may go with a heavier shaky head just for the reaction bite. You know, but this the 1/4 seems to be the very best that I've found. You know, and I'll spool up. I'll run at least 15, 17-pound test. You know, on a decent little flipping stick. You know, it's not your real heavy flipping stick because you got your lighter weight. You know, so this is just a 610 finesse jig rod. Falcon makes. You know, there's all kind of different rods, brands out there. They all make pretty much the same principle of a rod. You know, and it's for a lighter bait like this. So, which is fairly important when you're flipping. You know, is to have a decent rod that's got the right percentage of backbone, but then a little bit of light tip for these lighter baits. So,
Tell me what you mean by flipping. Are you
what I call
like the square bill? Are you running it along the side of the dock, maybe the shady side with some wind? Or are you flipping?
yeah. Now the square bill, you know, you're just casting the square bill, run it down.
Skipping.
Once we've kind of established what area that seems like concentration, then I'm gonna slow down and I'm gonna flip my shaky heads and my jigs. Okay, when I say flip, now I'm gonna get to the sides of them and I'm gonna start on the shallow side of the dock, front side, back side, whatever, and I'm gonna start flipping every hole on these docks. And I'm gonna go all the way around this dock until I catch 2 or 3 fish. And now I'm determining, are they on the shallow side, underneath the dock? Are they all the way out here on the ends of the boat lifts, on the outside corners? You know, are they on the shady side? Are they on the sunny side? Where are they at on these docks? And I'm gonna flip them all the way around until I catch 2 or 3 fish and I establish, okay, they're all on this particular part of the dock. And that usually, believe it or not, will hold pretty true once you figure that out. Okay, and it may change within an hour, 2 hours, but once you establish that, now you just eliminate it having to fish this whole entire dock and wasting all this time to where you just go, okay, they're in the center of these docks and they're 4 foot underneath the swim platform. That's all you're targeting. You just go, you hit that one, you go to the next one, you hit that one, and now your productive flips are way more productive time-wise, time management, than if you're flipping every single inch of this dock, you know.
Then when you say flipping, are you inferring also like you're skipping it, like in between the floats?
Yeah, when I say flipping,
Or
that's
behind-
skipping, that's pitching, that's flipping. To me, I just refer to it as flipping.
Got it.
You may flip it, skip it in there 3 times. You may flip over 2 bars in a boat lift.
Right.
You know, you may flip to the front, open water. It's still, to me, it's just, I just refer to it as flipping. You know, where you're flipping it, that's what you're trying to determine where your highest percentage area or placement of your bait is. That's obviously that's what you're trying to determine when you're shallow water fishing. You know,
Jim, for average fishermen like me, and I represent the average fisherman on bassandbob.com, so, because I am the average fisherman. What kind of techniques, how did you learn, or what are the recommendations you have to learn how to flip or skip and get underneath, you know, the foam or over the top of, you know, the,
right, basically
you know,
getting the bait where you think you need
braces,
to have
you know,
it,
and
right?
stuff like that.
And that's, you know, honestly, it's just all practice and experience on the water. anybody here can do it, anybody watching can flip. You can learn to flip, you can flip under them docks, you can flip over the bars and the lifts back in there. You can learn to flip just by doing it. You know, there's certain things you definitely can do, you know, that's gonna help you out. You know, nothing against a spinning rod reel at all. They are very productive skipping and flipping. You know, they're this one here is set up with a drop shot, but you can, the exact same rig, the shaky head, you can skip these. You can really skip really good with a spinning rod and reel. Sometimes over a bait caster, just because you're not going to get the backlash, you're not going to get the overrun. If you're just learning and you want to get back and fish these shallow docks, pick you up a spinning rod and reel and go to work. Tie the same baits on there. You can flip a spinning rod and reel the exact same as you can a bait caster. You take out the line, and I usually want to tell people, you know, just about the length of your rod where your reel is. That's the water. That's the line you want out. Okay, you don't want too sharp. You don't want it. You don't bend that rod. You're not bending that rod to flip it or shoot it, whatever. You know, you don't want too much line back here where you're all jacked up. It is pretty important to have the exact right amount of line out when you're going to flip. So whether it be a spinning rod, bait caster, because when you're flipping, you're letting that bait do all the work. Right. Most of the time, when you're flipping, you're letting that bait pendant out, you know, just like that. And it does matter. And you just stand on the front deck of your boat, on a dock, whatever. Just stand there with it and just do this for, right, you know, a few times, and then do your bail. Flip your bail, and just let the speed of that determine how far your bait goes. That's all flipping is. And you just get used to it. You know, your rod, reel, setup. One of my favorite reels to flip with, it has been for years, and I've used a lot of reels, is the Bass Pro Qualifier. It's about a $100 reel, but for whatever reason, this thing does not override on me, and I can do a lot with this bait. If you want to cast a bait with this, I don't recommend it. It just does not cast very far. It's just not made for casting like one that's like, say, like your Hypermag Lose reel. You can cast forever with it, you know. But and this thing,
what reel is that again, Jim?
This is a Bass Pro Qualifier is what this is. And it, you know, it just, for whatever reason, adjusts real well. And when I'm flipping, I have very little trouble with back runs or overrides on it. The reel's only like $100. You can buy them for $79 on sale. If you're learning, if you're new to flipping, new to bait caster, it's a really good rod, reel to start with. You know, I mean, it's a great little reel. I still use it on. What's that?
What rod you got that on?
Rod, this is a Falcon all-purpose. This is the medium heavy cast, and it's a little higher, little heavier rod, just a little firmer tip, but it's a 7-foot rod. Same deal, little bit heavier bait. I'm going up a little bit heavier rod. You know, I just want it paired with the exact accent rod I want. You know, I want good solid backbone. When you're flipping docks, we all know when you flip in there, a lot of these bites are on the initial fall, and that fish will grab that bait and he'll shoot back up underneath them, lips, floats, in the brush, whatever. So you gotta have enough rod. You know, you don't want a real light action rod. You gotta have a heavy enough one that when you set that hook, you're turning the head and you're getting them headed the right direction. You know, this ain't flipping docks isn't a place where you let that fish play. You know, you're let them play. You're not letting them play around. You're yanking them and you're getting them headed your way, and most likely you're swinging them in the boat. You know, I mean, you don't have much line out. You might have 10, 15 foot, you know, maybe 20 foot line out. So it's a hook set, reel, catch up, get them in the boat. Quick deal. So.
And Jim, you know, we're not as accurate as a lot of the pros or whatever. Yep. We're going to hit those floats. We're going to hit the, you know, things. Once you hit that, is that bass taken off? And you should just go to the next one.
Don't worry about it.
Is that, you don't worry about it?
Don't worry about it one bit. preferred not to. You'd rather slide it in there perfect, slide it in there and let that thing sink and don't disturb anything. That's the most desirable, most sought after flip. You slide that baby in there and you're like, that's a fish. You slide her in there and let her sink, boom, okay? How many times have you hit the dock, float, something? You hit that, you don't even see bluegill, you don't see shad, nothing. You hit that dope, they fly out or they move. Bluegill dart away, shad dart away. That just got Bass's attention. This bass is laying down there, not doing nothing. He's like, whoa, you know, instinct tells him,
There's a meal.
there's a meal. Or it moves them away, gets them away from the cover, and now they're out here all by themselves and swim around, easy prey. Bass know that. Sometimes, man, a real good dock flipper, Joe Brantley, we talk about this a lot, and he swears that you hit that foam, it creates a bite a lot of time. I'm sure you can take a poll of 10 guys that flip docks and are good at it, and half are going to say, don't make any noise, this, that, and the other, and the other half will say, don't worry about it. Obviously, it depends on the fish's mood. If they're aggressive, I don't care what happens, you know. Perfect example, today we're fishing, it was a guide trip, and the guy made a cast, and you know, we're like, man, we just can't the fish aren't biting, you know, they're not biting, and he reels the bait back to the boat, and he gets halfway to the boat, and here comes two bass together, flying out of the slip, out in the bright sun, chase his bait all the way back to the boat. He lifts his bait up, it hits the boat, and these two fish are sitting there looking at it. I said, drop the bait. He drops it back in, they both grabbed it.
Wow.
Both of us there, the noise, I mean, when they're ready to feed, it clicks in their brain. They don't care what's going on. They're feeding, you know. So, point being, if you can make it a nice, quiet entry, perfect. If you hit the dock, don't worry about it. You're going to hit the docks. We all hit the docks, believe me. We hit the dock. Sometimes I'll hit the dock and I'll just burn it back in and I'll flip again. Sometimes I'll hit the dock and I'll see what happens, you know. But to your point, don't worry, don't overthink it. Don't worry about it. Don't go, man, I just screwed that up. Just wait till you get the other side. The worst you did was scoot them over to the other side, and now when you flip over there, you're gonna get them. So, you know, it might get their attention. It might move them, you know. But if they're there and they're ready to feed, they're gonna feed. You didn't mess up. You didn't mess it up. You know, it's just
Jim,
my thought anyway.
Makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Jim, this time of year, what kind of bait and trailer do you have set up?
Yeah, so, you know, like we found them with the square bill, kind of the
Right.
area, okay? If you know where they're at, now I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna start flipping. I'm gonna flip that shaky head a lot, but my favorite bait is to flip a 1/2 ounce Crankbait zapper jig, and a lot of times this time of year, you'll see a lot of bluegill back there, and they're
Yeah.
feeding on bluegill. The bluegill have spawned, and the bluegill are roaming around, they're moving, okay? So this is a Cumberland crawl, you see that chartreuse on it? That mimics our bluegill right now, exactly what they look like. I've got it trailed up with a Crankbait swamp bug. I just peel all the legs off, and it's got
that's cool.
the action on that tail mimics everything. A shad, a bluegill, whatever. And it moves a lot of water, and it's perfect for flipping. You know, that's probably my go-to jig setup
Yeah.
for flipping shallow docks. When that bait enters the water, as soon as it turns, it's swimming. It's making
Right.
movement like a
Some water.
bluegill. It's moving water, it's making vibration. It's just getting their attention. So that setup there is my favorite to flip docks.
Jim, when you're flipping docks, in the kind of water you're talking about, when you come up to like the cables of the docks, are you either trying to skip that underneath the dock, underneath the cables to the, you know, maybe the walkway shade?
Right.
Or are you kind of getting right up to the cable and flipping it into that shade, and then when you're skipping and flipping into the, under the foam, of the first 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever, openings on the foam on the dock, how far away are you from the dock on that scenario, with the foam, or how close are you to the cables when you're fishing the cable.
Right, and
In
that's,
terms of both,
that's
both positions.
a really good, point that we can get into and talk about, because that is a very important part of shallow water fishing, shallow dock fishing. More so than like maybe hitting a foam or something, would be the water your trolling motor pushes, the sound your electronics make, the sound that when you step on a trolling motor and engage that motor, you know, is keeping a distance enough so when you're turning your trolling motor around, don't push that water back up underneath that dock, because if you're turning around, you get too close, and you're like, oh, I'm too close, I can't make this flip, I'm gonna turn my trolling motor around, I'm gonna back away. Well, when you back away, you're pushing water underneath it.
And
If anything gets a
jump.
bass's
Yeah.
attention that something's not right, that'll do it right there. That will get a turn of fish off more than anything else. So very important to, when you're approaching these docks, approach it in such a way that you're not gonna get yourself in that situation. Like if I'm gonna flip the shallow side of the dock, under the catwalks, or underneath the foam, I'm gonna approach it parallel to the dock instead of straight in, where I'm gonna get myself in that position. My trolling motor, my electronics are out here. My trolling motor, when I go straight in, and when I turn it, I'm pushing towards the bank, not underneath that dock. That's really important to keep in mind when you are shallow water flipping. You know,
Fishing that shallow, Jim, do you turn your electronics off?
sometimes, honestly, when you get that shallow, 5 foot or less, the electronics, you know, as far as I'm concerned, are almost useless. You're really not using them at that point. Maybe in the spring when you're really paying attention to temperature, you're trying to find a warm area, I'll have it on for temperature. But when you get back in shallow, once you figure them out, John, that's another super, these are little things that make the difference of catching a fish or not catching a fish. And you get back there and you know these fish are back there and you've got a good solid pattern, shallow flipping, you can turn the electronics off. Keep them off, be quiet with your water, jumping up and down in the boat, not jumping up and down, but say jumping, coming down off the front deck or stomping or your trolling motor, whatever it is, just be quiet, because that sound travels a lot in the water, and it's gonna, you know, maybe not so much here at the Ozarks because they're used to noise. You know, I don't know how many times you'd be back in shallow, and you idle all the way back there, and there's people jumping off the dock, they're throwing stuff for their dog, and they're making all this noise. You're like, I just idled all the way back here, and you go to the next dock and catch a 4 or 5 pounder. You know, to me, all that's done is moved any of the fish that's underneath that dock where they're playing. It's just slid them down to the next dock. You know, so that's the Ozarks anyway. You know, but back to what we're doing. While I'm thinking of it and we're talking about it, you know, these bluegill, you see the bluegill in the backs, and a lot of them, Denise and I fished the other day together, first time in quite a while we were talking about it. You know, we're both out independently doing trips or whatever. We were back in a little bay, little creek, in a little bay, and she's like, look at them bluegill up there, and we're watching them, and every one of them, these were small bluegill, you know, they're about the size of this jig. Every one of them, you couldn't see the bluegill, but you could see a chartreuse stripe. That's all you could see on the tip of their tail, and that's all you seen were chartreuse stripes moving along. So this marker, these highlighter markers, whatever, you know, the chartreuse. Spike it. You know, if I know I'm gonna do that, obviously I'll take my thing of spike it and sit down at the table at home, and I'll dip several tips, trailers, shaky heads, same deal. You can take, and obviously on the shaky heads even, we'll do the same thing, and we'll take the chartreuse and do just the tail. You're just trying to mimic anything you can do to make this thing look natural, what they're feeding on, the better your odds are to getting a bite. If they're up there feeding on bluegill, and this thing falls in there, it looks like a bluegill, swims like a bluegill, they think it's a bluegill, they're gonna grab it, you know. So, spike it. These color pencils are really good to make something look like a bluegill, you know. So I definitely would encourage you to try that. I mean, it makes the difference. A lot of times you're not getting bites, and you put just a little chartreuse on something, especially if you're getting up any of these river arms and you got a little dark water, colored water, I guess, that a chartreuse will definitely show up. And I've seen it definitely swimming docks, you know, just like with the square bill. I'll swim this jig a lot in the summertime alongside these docks. And I'll do the exact same thing. I'll put a little chartreuse on there. This one probably has enough chartreuse, just the jig itself. But say I'm throwing a brown purple scale or something with that doesn't have so much chartreuse, I'll chartreuse tip that tail. And I've seen a lot of times not getting bites, and you put that chartreuse on there, you think, how can that make a difference? But it does. It makes a big difference a lot of times just getting bites. So definitely experiment in the backs with a little chartreuse on your jigs. But same deal when I'm talking about it, you know, I'm going to flip this jig in every single hole I can. Alongside the dock, the boat lifts, and the dock, you got, you know, 12 inches to 2 foot sometimes. Those are perfect places to put your jigs and your shaky heads. You try to flip to the very back, you know, section of that, let it sink to the bottom and work that all the way down there. When you pull it up to the bar and flip it over, let it go back to the bottom. A lot of times fish will follow that bait and it'll follow to the surface, and when you pull it out of the water, as soon as it comes back in, they'll grab it. You know, just like what I was saying today happened with that fish. They'll follow it, and it takes a little different action, movement, come out of the surface, go back in for the fish to react to it. You know, I don't know, maybe they think it come out and they're like, I missed my opportunity. You know, here it comes again, I'm grabbing it this time. I don't, you know, whatever it is that makes them bite it. But
And when you say hole, are you meaning some kind of shade around the dock or something like that?
yeah, when I say a hole, I'm talking a dark spot. You know, you can look at a dock and you can see the sun's penetrating through it, and it might, you know, this side is a little brighter, and then you look over here and it's dark and it's black in there. That's where you want your bait. That's where that big fish is gonna hang out and lay until he's ready to eat. And all you're trying to do is present something that's an easy meal right there where he's laying, and when it falls in front of him, he's gonna run up and grab it. You know, most of these bites, just be aware that I'm gonna say 80%, at least 80% of the bites are on the initial fall. When that bait hits and the initial fall, that's when if there's a fish there and he's active and
Watch your line.
he's 4 foot over here and that bait hits, he's gonna shoot over there and grab that bait so quick. So a lot of guys will miss fish by flipping in there, maybe pulling out some line, letting it go to the bottom, and let it sit there and then start working it. That fish has grabbed that bait, spit it out, and turned around and went back before you even picked up your rod tip. So just something really to be focused on is your line. When you flip that line in there, watch that line, because that line will shoot off, and that's the only indication a lot of times you'll get that you even have a bite, especially in the shallow water.
Yeah.
You know, because you're in water, you know, this deep. That fish knows anything that happens. Anything that happens in that level is different than fishing out over 70 foot of water. You know, there's a lot going on. You're in 4 foot of water, and something drops in there. That fish knows what's going on. He knows when something's in its area. So fish will come a long ways to hit a bait in shallow water.
How about scent? Do you put any scent on your?
I honestly, the only time I use scent is in the wintertime, personally, because I think that bait's in front of them longer. You're moving it slower. It's not a reaction bite in the wintertime because they're so lethargic. They're not just reacting out of instinct and chasing a bait or pouncing on a bait because of reaction. You know, so they're more coming up behind it. They might look at it for a while. They may smell it. They may look at it. And a scent at that particular time when that water's cold, I think really helps. And I'll definitely use it in the wintertime. In the summertime, I don't because it's all reaction. Usually that initial fall, burning that bait alongside that bait, they're just running out and grabbing it because it's there and it's an easy target, you know, and an opportunity basically for them. So I don't use it. A lot of the baits Nowadays, like I know that the Crankbait, only because we own the company for so long, is already impregnated with a lot of scent, some crawfish scent on it. And a lot of times the scent is more so to cover up our hands,
Right.
our scent, that we put out naturally. Obviously, we talked about sunscreen earlier.
Yeah.
And that's another reason I don't use sunscreen, because that sunscreen, it sticks to your hands, it's waterproof.
All the time.
You do your hands, you do everything, and then you pick up your baits and you touch it. That scent is on that bait.
And
You
that's
we
why
talk
I
about
use
it.
Dave's Hog Jam, because even though maybe since this time of year, maybe it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a big deal, like Steve, when we were fishing yesterday, and I caught 3 or 4 keepers, and you caught 1 keeper. All my baits had the Dave's Hog Jam on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's because, like you said, the sunscreen, the different scents that you get
Right.
from your body.
And if you're working a bait on the bottom, you're dragging a big worm
Yeah.
or even a shakehead or anything, and you're working the bottom and you're dragging it, absolutely scent, But
Yeah.
what we're talking about here,
Right.
necessarily a
It's
reaction bite,
reaction bite.
I'm not
yeah.
really worried about it,
Right. Yeah, it makes total sense. Yeah.
But what you're saying, if I'm working a bait slow and I'm trying to get it by them or in brush pile or something, there's nothing wrong with scent, absolutely not. But on a reaction bait, I'm not worried about it.
Makes sense.
You know,
Yeah.
at all,
Makes total
but,
sense. That's
but
it.
at the same time, I'm really conscious on filling up my gas tank, oil, for your 2 strokes, suntan lotion, spray. I will say one thing real quick on the sunscreen spray. Don't use it in a boat.
Right.
Do not use sunscreen spray in a boat, especially in someone else's boat. I've seen a lot of times people spray their feet and they don't even think about it, and they move their feet and there's 2 impressions of feet, and that stuff takes forever to wear out. Sun will penetrate it, it'll bleach carpet, your seats. It's just not it's just,
Yeah.
I was just,
Sunscreen up before you get on the water.
exactly.
It's the same way with the spray scent.
Yeah.
I've had a couple buddies
Oh
of
yeah,
mine that use
definitely.
in the back of their boat.
Or pay attention to the wind. Just be conscious of the wind, what ways it's blowing. Use that wind to blow it away from the boat instead of in front, and then it blows it onto your gel coat, your carpet,
Right.
your shoes, whatever. But it's just just a small thing. Put it on before you go out in the boat, and then maybe wash your hands. Get some of that off of your hands. I think you're going to increase your odds of maybe catching some fish, especially when it's tough fishing. Which right now fishing is pretty tough in general. And that's mainly because the fish are so spread out. I was going to just kind of give you a brief rundown of a day. Me and Denise went out. It was just 2-3 days ago, and we went out and we started on Main Lake, and Denise was throwing a shaky head. I was throwing a Texas rigworm, and we caught a few out there. A couple decent fish, 3.5, maybe a 4-pounder.
Good fish. Yeah.
I've got a little drop shot rig I've been throwing that I really like. It's just a 1/4 ounce drop shot rig, about 18 inches of line, and then I'll just take the ring crawl, the Crankbait ring crawl, and I'll use it as my bait. Oops, go ahead. I'll use it on my hook there, and it's just free on a little number 2 sickle hook. And when you're
Nice.
when you're throwing this up there, bluffs, whatever, you just flip it up there, cast it up there, let that bait, the weight go to the bottom, and when it's there, then keep your line tight, and then just let it sink slowly. And that little thing looks like one of them little 3-inch crawfish. It just falls down real slow, hits a rock, and you bounce it up, it comes up. It just is about as natural as you're going to get for a presentation when bites are tough. So I'll use that. I used that the other day, and I caught a few fish on that. She caught some on the shakehead. I caught some on the Texas rig worm. But then it started getting rough, and the bites started.
Texas rigworm and brush, or just?
No, just on rock piles, some brush piles. You know, this is main lake fishing, back out to main lake early in the mornings, you know.
How do you work your Texas rig worm on main lake bluff ends or main lake points? Are you dragging it?
It depends on what we're doing. If we're working bluff ends or bluffs, and it's rocky, we usually put on shaky head. We'll put it on a 5/16 shaky head, quarter ounce,
Right.
or even a 5/8 ounce shaky head if we're fishing way out deep. We're dragging rocks. If we're fishing brush and we know it's brush, we'll get away from the shaky head and go to more of a Texas rig, pegged weight. It'll come through that brush a lot easier. You can drag it up to, if you know a brush pile is out there, you just throw it out there, drag it until you hit that brush,
And then work.
and then you can work it through. And if that weight doesn't separate from your
Right.
bait, a lot of times it'll come through there a lot better. You know,
3/8 ounce or half ounce?
it depends. You know, quarter, 5/16 for, you know, if you're fishing 4 foot to 12 foot, you get more than 12 foot, 3/8 ounce. Even if you start getting out to that 25 foot, now we're going, you know, half, 3/4 even.
Right.
You know, you're if they're on the bottom and they're relating to the bottom, throw it out there, something heavy, get to the bottom.
Right.
You know, and then you're gonna get that positive feedback, a lot more feedback with a heavier weight, dragging it, you know, out on that deeper water. You know, once you get into that brush pile, it doesn't matter a whole lot because there's so much going on with the brush that's crashing through the brush or falling through the brush, and they're gonna pick it up. You know,
This time of year, I know you've talked about a couple of different colors with your jig and stuff like that. Are there any particular colors that you would recommend that anglers use this time of year, whether it's a Texas rig worm or a shaky head worm? I know you talked about the jig colors that you use for flipping docks and stuff like that, or does color really matter a whole lot? And if so, what would you recommend?
when it comes to color, as far as I'm concerned, I keep it really simple all year long. If you go to these southern lakes and it's really clear, it's a different story. Lake of the Ozarks, I've dove here, you know, and you get down 8-10 foot,
It's
you don't
dark.
see nothing. I mean, you don't see your hand in front of your face. So they're seeing a silhouette, they're seeing a movement, they're feeling a vibration. One thing I'll do, I don't have one set up here, is I'll slide my weight on, I'll put a glass bead on, and then I'll tie it to my hook. In brush piles, I really think it makes a big difference when you're popping that worm or hopping it, and that rattle on your bait is hitting that either the weight, tungsten weight, or your hook. There's enough rattle there, enough noise that it may get a fish's attention. I do that a lot, especially flipping a tube. You know, flipping a tube, because when it's sinking, you're kind of rattling it, and it'll rattle down, and that'll get an attention of a bass. It may even get attention to a bluegill. The bluegill are notorious for coming in and investigating something rattling. If you ever swim or whatever, and you know, we always did trying to figure out fish. You know, we get down there with them. You click your nails together or click some rocks together, the bluegill come and investigate. Well, when the bluegills are out there in the open, guess what? Now the bass are going in there to investigate. So I don't care if that rattle gets the bluegill coming over there or the bass, just so they see my bait and it gets its attention, maybe gets me another bite or two.
That's
You
great.
know.
That's great.
You ever
You
put a
know-
rattle in your jig?
I have. I don't a whole lot on the jig, and I can't really give you a good definition why, but I have. You know, they seem to either grab it or they don't on a jig. Back to what we're doing. What I was getting to on fishing in the summer and being tough, we fished a few hours out, you know, main lake stuff, and we caught some fish, and then we played with some top water fish on some main lake docks, you know, kind of getting ready for upcoming trips, you know, what we're going to be doing. And we caught fish like that.
What kind of top water?
Usually just a chug bug, you know, chug bug, a spook, a little spook, you know, anything that's going to bust the surface, stay on the surface, make some rattles, get their attention, come up. Once some fish start feeding up, anything on the surface is going to catch them, you know. We did that for a little bit, caught some fish like that. You know, those are usually, they'll be keepers, but most of them are smaller fish, but it's good, a lot of fun, you know. And then the bite kind of died off, and we're like, let's go to the backs. So we went to the backs, and it wasn't 10 minutes we started catching fish in the back. So
No kidding.
in a matter of 4 hours, we caught fish on the main lake. Then we caught some about halfway back on some docks. And then we went to the very backs and we started catching them. And that back was a little better. There was a big ball of shad, the first fish, in about 4 foot of water. And then he says, "Look at that bass." And it was about a 3-pounder, just following them, that school of shad. He was just around, and she flipped her shaky head over there, and that fish disappeared. And she set the hook and caught it. So, I mean, just that quick. We went to the backs, and I think we went to another one. I caught another one about 3 pounds, flipping up in a stall. So, basically, you know, all I'm getting at is in the summertime, you can catch them everywhere on the lake. If you can get out there, if it's cloudy, rainy, early in the morning, fish main lake. That's easier. You can drag a worm, you can drag a shaky head, drop shot, and you're going to catch fish. Once it gets wavy out there, and you get them 4 foot rollers busting against them points and the bluffs, them fish ain't going to stay out there. They're going to drop down in the water column. They're going to back out and suspend. They're going to get a lot harder to catch.
Right.
That's when I'm going to the backs. You know, early in the morning, just say a tournament day or a fishing day, whatever. You can run the main lake stuff with top water and maybe catch a few bonus fish. But once that sun gets up and the fish back up underneath them docks, that's when you go to the back. So sometimes early morning, shallow dock fishing isn't really where it's happening because the fish are out roaming, they're still roaming from the night, and they're not tucked up underneath these docks, so they can be anywhere. Once that sun gets up high, them fish get on them docks, and now you got them all underneath them docks, and all this other water means nothing except for them dark holes. So now you got your fish there, and that's when your shallow flipping really starts to shine, is when the sun's high. On a cloudy day, it's not necessarily the pattern, you know. Your bite will really be off on a cloudy day. That's when you'll run, like say, a whopper plopper or a buzzbait or spook down the side of these same shallow docks, and these fish will come out. They're a little more aggressive, they're roaming, and they'll come out. That may be a better bait or pattern to throw than flipping if it's cloudy. You know, you can fan cast out on these flats when it's cloudy, misty rain, with a number of baits. You know, the spook, buzzbait, whopper plopper, excellent. Chatterbait, you know, a chatterbait's another good shallow dock bait.
Yeah.
It looks just like a shad. It vibrates, puts out a ton of vibrations. I got a little, pretty sure that's a little Kitech, little 4-inch Kitech on the back of it. And the same deal.
Run that alongside of the dock.
Burn that alongside them docks. You can another good method with the chatterbait. A lot of people overlook, I think, is kind of yo-yoing it. Throwing that up to the shallow side. You'll let it sink to the bottom and rip it up, and then let it sink back down. Rip it up, rip that all the way alongside them 4 foot docks, and the reaction bites you'll get on that are some pretty incredible bites where they may not hit anything else, but this amount of vibration, everyone knows, you know, a chatterbait puts on a ton of vibration. You got that swim bait on the back of there. That'll create some bites when they're not biting. You know,
Do you put chartreuse on the tail of that at all?
yeah, sometimes you know, if you think they're feeding on the bluegill,
Oh,
if they're
right,
feeding
right.
shad, I'm just staying with this. You know,
Got
if they're chasing shad, busting shad out of the water, chasing them all around, I'm not really worried about the chartreuse.
Right.
But that's when, you know, you got bluegill present, and you see them up there in the shallows busting bluegill.
Right.
But something else is a chatterbait. It's easy to throw. They throw real easy. They're heavy. Throw it to the front. Let it sink down just real steady along there. Then throw it to the front. Let it sink down. Rip it up. Yo-yo it. Rip it up. And just try some different things with it. And you'd be surprised, you know, some of the bites you can get it. So, you know, basically the whole,
That's great. That's great.
you know, summertime fishing, you can catch them out deep. You can drag a worm. But to me, I like the challenge, you know. Not that them fish are easy out there to catch in the summer, because they're not right now.
No.
But just the challenge of flipping, you know, we talk about getting good at flipping. I try to hit the smallest holes, stuff no one else has gotten into. You just try to tune and hone in your skills to get to where you can slide that bait in there quiet, are sliding in that smallest hole, the darkest spot. And that's fun for me, you know, to get back in the shallows. You set the hook, and that fish is over the, you know, bar or underneath the dock, you know, and you're fighting him out, and he's busted. You got him on this side, he's up on this side, splashing. It's just a lot of fun.
There's nothing more fun
to
for
it.
me to hear a big fish.
Right.
Underneath that dock, fucking splashing around.
Yeah, you set the hook and you hear them hitting that foam underneath there, and you're like, oh, that's a good one
It's so
there.
much
you know.
fun.
And you'll catch as many 5-pounders in 3 foot of water right now as you'll catch in 20 foot of water right now. I promise you, the shallow bite starts up in mid-July and it goes through October.
Right.
You know, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very productive, and it's really rewarding. And don't get me wrong, you go to the backs and fish it all day long, and you might catch 6 fish.
Right.
But they're all going to be 3 to 5 pounds.
Got it.
So,
That's
Welcome to my world.
yep.
Jim, do you, how long do you try a typical bait? You know, 15, 20 minutes and then switch to another one, or, you know?
Right.
Because you talked about square bills, you talked about, you know, several other ones going across that dock, you know,
Right.
up the dock.
Exactly, and that's another great deal, is because you're spending so much time going back there to begin with, and you're gonna spend a lot of time working these docks. You know, I'll give a bait an hour, you know, 35, 40 minutes, you know, to an hour, and if I don't get a bite or something, I'm gonna switch it up until I get a bite. Once you get a bite, now you can slow down with that particular bait, you know, and you know, you can flip a shaky head and not get a bite, and you're back in the shallows and you got confidence there's fish back there. If you don't get a bite in an hour, you better switch it up. You better go to a square bill, something off of the bottom, mid water column. You know, maybe flip the jig, something with a little more action. And if you're not getting bite on the bottom at all, just do something different and start throwing that top water. And I don't care. There's some days if that wind's blowing in the backs, and you know you get these howling, really windy days, and it's blowing, that water's turning in the backs. Them fish are feeding, and they're feeding up, and they'll fish. They'll hit a top water back there, bright sunny day. But if that wind's blowing and it's rippling that top, it's almost like it's cloudy to them. You know, they don't get the bright penetration, and that it's got oxygen rolling. It's creating oxygen. You know, the oxygen's coming in from the atmosphere in the backs. You know, and the more turbulence and the more air movement, the more oxygen's going to be back there. And when that's happening, you know, you better be trying to throw something moving, a little more aggressive bait. You know, so if it's like that and you're flipping for an hour and you're not catching a bait, switch it up with something.
Right.
You've only got, you know, so much to fish.
Right.
And if you got a place you're confident and there's a lot of shad presence and you're like, them fish gotta be back here, go down a strip of 5 docks with one particular bait and then come back and go down with a different one. Go down it 3 times with 3 different baits. That's gonna tell you right then, pretty quick.
Nice.
You know, if you're you find a set of docks, you know they should be there. Go down it with 3 different baits and see. And that's going to tell you, because if you go down it with 2 baits and then that 3rd bait you start catching them, well, that's pretty good indication that's what they want. You know.
Jim, we're over an hour in.
Yeah.
I don't pay you, but you're making overtime right now.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. Well, you know, I was fishing. Everybody watching, everybody here, we love fishing. We want to talk about. We sit here and talk fishing for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
I know we'll shut it down, you know, but man.
You're a great ambassador. You're great at sharing information. Before I ask some final questions or your final comments, I want to open it up to anybody else has any questions from the audience here.
Yeah, I've got one. When you say, you know, some of these bigger creeks, they'll have 8 to 10 good-sized coves off of them.
Right.
When you go to the backs, do you check out the backs of all these coves too, or you go straight to the back?
Absolutely.
Of the main creek?
That's what's great about, you know, us guys are up here talking, trying to relay a lot of this information. We kind of overlook and we forget things. We've got it in our heads when we go in a creek. We know how we're going to approach it. But what he basically said was these large, big creeks. Okay, you go to the very back of that arm. That's your prime stuff most of the time. But a lot of times, these little feeder creeks that feed these major creeks will have a little more runoff in it. They may have a little more shade, or maybe these shad haven't made it to the backs and they've only made it to the first pocket creek off of the main lake. And that's generally how they do migrate through these creeks. They'll come off the main lake and they'll go to the first one or two, and then they'll work their way back, and then they get in the center, and then they end up in the backs. But absolutely, check out these first feeder creeks in the major creeks. If you find them there, now you're not idle and you're not going all the way to the backs. You're coming in the first creek and doing the exact same thing and catching fish. So absolutely check that out, you know.
When you do your graph and you see these fish suspended, I mean, you just leave those alone and go.
Those
get
are
somebody else?
hard fish to catch. Now with live scope, it's made it a lot easier. You can target those fish. For those fish we found, like a swim bait, a small swim bait. We were throwing a swim bait today, a little 3-inch Kitech, for just those fish. We was catching some on top, but it was kind of early, and you could see the fish down there. The shad were down there, the fish were down there. I'm like, they're not coming to the surface. That's the easy way to catch them. We were throwing them those swim baits. We'd throw them by her. I'd watch with the live scope, and you watch that bait go down, and you just swim it through them, and a lot of fish just follow it. But every once in a while, you'll get one just tear out and grab it. So a little swim bait's probably your best bet on something like that, or like a wacky rig worm out in the middle of nowhere. If there's fish out there, you throw it and let it sink. Something slow falling, gets down to where the fish are and stays where they're at. Your odds of them, but those are hard fish to catch. A suspended bass is the hardest fish to catch in the lake. They're not relating to anything for whatever reason, other than maybe big schools of shad,
Guys, I have a final question for Jim, unless you guys all have any other questions. But before I get to my final zinger question.
He's got another question.
Yeah.
Final question.
Yeah, you guys got?
No, go ahead.
No, and I got all kinds of stuff I can
Before
talk
I get
about.
to the final zinger question, tell us a little bit about your sponsors.
Yeah, and that's where I was headed. I spent 23 years running a Ranger boat. Nothing against Ranger. Ranger's a great boat. Been around forever. Are they what they still have always been? Maybe. Denise has a brand new Ranger at home, 2 years old, no problem with it. I got introduced to Vexus boat, which, just a quick brief, some of the original guys at Ranger broke off and started Vexus. So they've got all the experience. As a matter of fact, I've got a 2018 Ranger. The guys that built that boat built my new Vexus.
Really?
Okay, so the same guys built my same two boats, two different brands. I've been down to the tour. I've been through the factory. It's like all the other factories. The attention to detail, the whole thing. We can go through the whole deal. What sold me on the Vexus is the air ride seats. I spent a lot of years in construction. Wasn't even easy on my back. Packing lumber, hanging drywall, you name it. Spent many years in the boats running this Lake of the Ozarks and the waves. Gary over at Sport World said, you got to take a ride. And I'd go there and I'm like, all right, Gary. He goes, nah, the water's too smooth today. It's too nice out there. You come back when it's rough. And that's how he sold me on the Vexus, because I've been, you get set in your ways. This is my boat, and we went out and one of them days, and that wind was howling 35, 40, and them rollers were out there.
Yeah.
And it was on a bright sunny day, so we had boat traffic, we had rollers, and we run that boat up that lake, and I went out with his boy Luke, and he run it, and Luke is a young kid, so it's wide open. We're running wide open, and I'm like, oh man, here we go. And we hit some of the waves, and I was
You're bracing yourself.
I was bracing myself, and these air ride seats, it's just like tractor trailer or any other. You fill it up according to your weight. It's just not a random air ride seat. You fill it up to the air pressure with a little chart with your weight of your body to maximize the performance of the air ride seat. You don't want it too hard. You don't want it too soft. You don't want it bottoming out, the whole deal. So anyways, we run on and we hit these waves, and there's no jolt. There's no jolt at all. It's just a cushion ride, easy, and
Nice.
that sold me on the boat right there, you know.
Nice.
You know, and then everything else that goes into it, you know, I could talk for hours about it,
Good
but
compartments and.
the compartments, the storage, you know, the drawer, the front deck is ginormous, the seafoam decking, the aeration system, it fills all the way to the top, which is huge on Lake of the Ozarks. You fill it all the way to the top, it seals tight. They come standard with oxygenator, your aerating system, and it fills it up tight. So when you run down this lake and it's rough, it's not sloshing your fish around, you know, so that's huge.
And what model of the Garmin is it that you're running? Or, I'm sorry, what
I run
model
the
of
VX20.
is?
I run the VX20. They make two fiberglass, a VX20 and a VX21, and then they have their, I don't even know what it's called. I'd call it your offshore, the one with the big windshield, the bigger boat, you know. Anyways, I run the VX20. I've run a 20-foot boat for the last several years. That's what works best for me around these docks, fishing.
Right, sure.
You know, the deck size, the whole deal. You know, so anyway, the Vex's boat has definitely impressed me. I would have never left the company I was with to go with a new boat if it wouldn't have impressed
And
me.
that's Sport World.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, Sport World Boat Center, they've been great to me for the last 18 years.
Right.
You know, so that says something else about, you know, we've got other boat dealers down here, and we've got some great ones. You know,
Right.
Boatworks is doing a great job over there.
Right.
Service with their brands of boats, this and that. I've been dealing with Gary for 18 years. We've got a relationship, and he has never failed me when it comes to servicing my boats, coming to pick me up on the water, rescuing me in some of the biggest tournaments. The biggest tournament I won was Everstart down
I
here.
remember that,
And
yeah.
I would not have won that boat if it wouldn't have been for Gary
Wow.
to fix my boat after the first day. And he stayed late. And that's what makes a difference, is service.
Right.
If you've got a dealership and they're not going to service your boat or be available or take care of you when you need it, the boat's useless, you know.
Yeah.
So
Got it.
hats off to him and his crew down there. They take care of both Denise and me, everything. It doesn't matter what it is. And they'll do the same for you. It's not just me. They'll do the same for you. You go down there, you look at his boats, and buy a boat through Gary. They're gonna take care of it. They're gonna help you. You're gonna do whatever you need, like a good dealership should.
Right.
You know. Obviously Garmin. I've been with Garmin now for a while. I don't think I was the first to have live scope, but I was one of the first
Yes,
few
you were.
to
Yeah.
switch to Garmin and run a live scope down here, and you've seen where that has went for the last, I don't know how many years, 8 years probably.
Right.
You've seen what it's done to the fishing industry. So, my opinion, they're on top of the game. It's kind of funny to watch, you know, Lawrence, Hummingbird, Garmin, want to come out with something. That's the best thing. The next, it's not long, the next one comes out with another one, and another one. So it's kind of neat because we'll let them battle out of who's on top, and we can, you know, reap the rewards of what they come up with. You know, so, you know, obviously the live scope has made a total difference in fishing in the last few years. There's different opinions on live scope. You know, some people are like, it's, you know, that's all it is, electronic game now, this and that. That's the farthest from the truth it can be.
Yeah.
You can have all the equipment and not know how to use it, or not utilize it, or not spend the time to learn it, and it's useless.
That's me.
Well,
So do you do guide trips with your electronics?
yeah, I do a lot of them. Last week, I guess I did 2 of them. It seems like once a week I'll get someone calling. They want a guide trip, but they also have Garmin. So absolutely, you know, the best thing to do is get in the boat with somebody, if it's Garmin or another brand, and go out with them and let them show you. You're going to save yourself time and aggravation of playing with these different settings.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot about my Garmins, but I was having a little issue getting mine set up to where I liked it. And I called Michael Harlan,
Yeah.
you know, one of these young guns. And these young kids, they get in there and they buzz through these options
Yeah.
in a hurry. And they've got it figured out, because they're, I must say, the new wave of fishermen. And they really utilize their electronics, you know. Jelnick, all these guys, they know what they're doing. Ask them guys. They're gonna tell you. If you say how you have this set up, they're gonna tell you how to set
I
up.
took
your
Hollenbeck
equipment.
out, I took Hollenbeck out this weekend, and he'd been looking at YouTube and all that stuff, and he had all his settings. He wrote down settings from all the YouTube shit, and he got his graph all fucked up.
Well,
I got in his Garmin for about a minute and a half. Changed this, changed that, changed that. I said, got rid of
leave
all that.
Leave it
YouTube-
alone,
all
but
that
there's
YouTube
always
shit.
new settings and new updates and
But-
different things that different guys come up with. That one of these younger guys or myself, just anybody out there, ask us when you see us
Right.
at the boat ramp, at the tournament, and don't be afraid or shy or embarrassed to come up and talk to somebody, because I guarantee you, if you come up and you ask a question, Bob can vouch for this, you come up and ask a question to me or anyone else, hey, what do you do for him? Before they're done talking, there's gonna be 12 people
Right.
standing around listening that had
Right.
that same question but didn't wanna ask.
But here's the thing is, there's
So-
so much, I think my point for Steve was there's so much YouTube information out there.
Yep.
Oh, everybody's got all these different freaking ideas and settings, and he's writing them all down.
Yep.
And he tried them all. I got out there and his graph was all messed up. In a matter of a minute and a half, just like you would. I changed this, I changed that, I changed that, and boom, he's
Yep.
dialed in.
And that's right, and that works on a particular
Body
time
of
of
water.
year, body
Yeah.
of water. But you do kind of need the knowledge to when you
Right.
go to these different lakes or different, even up the river where that water visibility might be a foot, and you get down by the dam or gravois,
Different.
and you got 20 foot.
Yeah.
It's a total different setting. So
Yeah.
YouTube is great. One other thing I want to say about Garmin that can't be overlooked or ignored is the customer service
Oh.
from Garmin. You call,
Steve Hollenbeck knows that,
hey,
man.
I
He
still call
calls-
because
he
sometimes
calls their
I know
number.
how to do it, but I ain't got time
Right.
to go through it all. And you call customer service of Garmin, you're dealing with a company from Kansas City.
Yeah.
You're gonna get somebody, and they know, you say, here's what I need, okay, no problem, let's do this, you're through your remote or through your graph, they're gonna run you through it, and they don't hurry. Anything else I can do while you've got me? Anything else I can set up? I've got a problem. Over and over, they are there, and they will help you, and they will take care of you. If they have a problem with their product, if they can't fix it over the phone and tell you, they got a new one on the way in the mail, and they will take care of their product. And that's goes right back to service, customer service. It's everything.
Jim, I want you to talk, before I ask you your zinger, the zinger question I'm gonna ask you here. So everybody hang on, because
I got a couple more things, but I can't ignore it.
I got a zinger question for Jim, which everybody will want to listen to. Tell us a little bit about your relationship now with Crocodile. Tell us a little bit about Crocodile, as well as any of your other sponsors.
Yep. Well, Crocodile, I always have a place in my heart for Crocodile. You know, we did a lot with Crocodile. Denise and I put a lot of years, a lot of effort in it, and got it as far as we could get it.
You built the brand. You built
and then,
you built the brand like incredible.
Well, I think so. I mean,
around the country.
We did a lot of work, but we had a lot of super help. A lot of our pro staff guys got the word out and used the product, give us feedback. So it's a big group effort on anything like that, you know. But the new owners are doing really well with it. They're really aggressive. Joey's doing a great job with social media, advertising, pursuing new stores, pursuing, you know, just you name it. And they're doing a great job. You know, they've got full-time employees that can work 40 hours a week for them, where me and Denise was trying to do it.
Just you two.
Just the two of us, and we'd bring in help. You know, Jessica helped us. You know, we had other help. But it was time for us. Denise retired last year. I'm trying to slow down a little bit. It was time for us to sell it. And
What are the keys that you feel about the, like, why Crocodile baits, the Jigs, the Swamp Bug, you know, Unique, the Buzz bait, all your baits? What do you feel are the keys to those baits being so successful and catching so many fish?
well, probably number one key is the feedback from the anglers. whether it be an average angler or a touring pro, and say, you need to do a little something with the weed guard, or try these skirts, or maybe how about these colors, or this particular hook, or whatever it is, or hey, I got an idea. You know, Wheezy come to, you know, the Wheezy jig.
Yeah.
Hey, I got an idea for a jig. And
Great
look what
jig.
that's done.
Awesome jig.
You know, so it's feedback from anglers, not sacrificing components for cheapness or price point.
Yeah, right.
It's never been the deal of Crockett, and it's never going to be, to try to make something a little cheaper, make a little more money here or there. Everyone knows you only get so many opportunities at a 5-pounder, and if the hook fails or ain't sharp or whatever, it's not worth it. You know, nobody cares when you go in to buy a product at Fitz Fishing or wherever you go to buy it. If that's what's going to catch fish, I don't look at the price.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't look at the price, you know. But Crockett Gator has the components and the price, so they've got them both. You know,
Right.
it was the best possible product at the fairest price was
Right.
always the
Yeah.
motto for, you know, Crockett Gator, and they're continuing. You know, so you know with Crockett Gator, kind of when we had it, you know, the jig, and then we developed a trailer around that jig that fits perfect, color coordinated with it. You know, the swamp bug, we come out with something for a lot of action, a lot of
Totally.
movement,
Yeah.
in cold water, used as a trailer, used by itself. You know, all the different jigs, the different shaky heads, everything was designed by somebody who fishes, and thought just small things, even the shaky heads, all the way down to the starter point, to reverse the keeper so that starter point has that straight little point. So
Man,
when
I
you
love-
start your
man, I
shaky
love
head,
that.
so it centers it up. You know, just those little things, putting the right size keeper on your baits to hold your baits. You know, just a lot of little things that these smaller companies. I don't know if Crockett Gator would be considered smaller companies still.
No.
I guess it is, but
You're a brand.
compared to others, that you know they put the time and effort and the thought to keeping things a good quality American-made product. You
Love
know?
it.
I mean, that's what attracted us to Crockett Gator. That's what kept us, you know, promoting and moving Crockett Gator. And then the new owners, they're pursuing the exact same thing.
Cool.
You know,
Any
the other sponsors, I can't, you know.
any vinyl sponsors?
We talked about the
Before I get
boats.
to
You know, the
my
electronics.
last zinger question.
Hang on with that singer, because I got a couple sponsors that are incredible, and the #1 component to a boat. I don't care what boat brand you run, what electronics you run, what it is. It all comes down to power. And if you do not have batteries that would maintain and keep running, start these motors, and these electronics demand a lot of power.
Been there, done that, buddy.
And I run the deck of batteries. I've been running them for about 3 years now from Wholesale Batteries. And Wholesale Batteries is another one that, you know, when you go buy a battery, you buy a battery through, you can call their factory and talk to someone that's got the knowledge. And you say, this is what I'm running. I'm running this graph, this brand, this boat, this trolling motor. What should I run? What do I need for all these components? And someone on the other end of the line will talk to you and tell you, go with this battery, this, you know, whether it's a Group 24, Group 31, the new lithium, whatever it is, they're going to tell you the right size, the proper battery, so all these components that we're all worried about will work properly. So the battery is the #1 component on a boat. I don't care what it is. Without it, you're dead in the water.
Totally.
So Wholesale Batteries, one in Kansas City, one in St. Louis. Just look them up, call them, tell them what you have, and somebody will tell you exactly what you need, you know, for to run your stuff properly.
Is there anywhere around the lake?
Yeah, and around here, Fitz Fishing, they carry them, and you know, there's a place on Pier 31 carries them. The best thing is just get online or call them and say, hey, I'm interested in your batteries. Where can I find one? You know, I know the Camden store where Denise, they have them in stock there. I'm not sure about the other Fitzes. They may.
I'm sure they do.
I think they do.
Check out Fitz Fishing. Maybe check out Boatworks too, but Fitz Fishing.
Yeah. You know, the other thing we talk about is a big thing is sunscreen. You know, I'm not a big fan of the sunscreen. I don't like to put it on me. but I do like the AFCO Sun shirts. I wear them every single day. The long sleeve, the other day when me and Denise went out, I wore a t-shirt and I was a lot hotter that day than when I wear the Sun shirts.
Right.
You know, they just keep it off of your, keep the sun from penetrating your
Right.
skin, your body, it protects you, you know, so,
I
AFCO gear.
wear them as well.
I think
Yeah.
everyone knows the reputation of AFCO gear now,
Right.
whether it be winter,
Right.
gloves, you know, sun shirts. That the Reaper, probably the #1 selling hoodie in the country,
Right.
probably. But you know, AFCO and all these products, you know, anything I talk about, I would use them if they help me or not. So that's how I determine who I'm gonna
Right.
support and promote and wear their brand on my shirts. Is if I would buy them regardless, they make the cut, just like I hope I make their cut. So
Absolutely.
how about that zinger question?
You always make my cut. I actually have two zinger questions, so.
Of course. I got it too.
So the #1 zinger question.
Best restaurant at the lake?
No. Well, go ahead,
We can
Chair.
talk about that too. No, go ahead about what you're thinking. If you've
So,
never been to the Brandon Iron on the west side,
oh yeah, I've been
go to
there.
the Brandon Iron.
Oh yeah, Branding Iron, oh, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. #1 zinger question, I got two.
Okay.
This is kind of easy.
I got some more restaurants over there too.
So-
You got-
So we have 90 miles of shoreline here on Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, 90 miles of a lake, 55,000 acre lake.
Yeah. 1,200 miles of shoreline, 92 miles channel miles of lake.
So during the summertime, kind of break it down for me. What areas of the lake do you want to fish, or are you going to want to fish the most?
Mm-hmm.
And what areas would you just, during the summer, choose not to fish? Or, I don't even want to say that,
Right.
but let's break it down from the river to Hurricane Deck Bridge, from Hurricane Deck Bridge to maybe Shawnee Bend, and then from Shawnee Bend to the Gravois and the dam. Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are in fishing all those areas of the lake during the summertime.
In the summertime, you know, early summer, June, lower end. You know, that lower end, bigger points, for obvious reasons because of current. Now we're in the summertime. Honestly, what you said was different areas of the lake. You'll have different watercolor. You'll have different depths, average depth, I would say. You'll have different types of docks, boat docks. The docks on the lower end are totally different than the docks on the upper end.
Right.
You know, as far as how they're built, what type of structure might be around them,
Depth.
you know.
Right.
Whether it be the shallow anchor poles compared to cables, how deep the foam goes into water. There's a lot of different, you know, dock components, I guess, you know, would be a big difference. But as far as the area of the lake, you can fish the entire lake, no matter where you're at, the exact same way,
You just talked about.
just different techniques. You know, you can fish Main Lake all year if you want to stay out there and deal with that. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going in a creek. I don't want to be out there with the big boats. I don't want to be out there with jet skis. I don't
No
wanna
matter
be-
where you're at.
I just don't want to be out there with them, just for safety reasons, for roughness, for fish quit feeding, whatever. You know, you can get up and back of the creeks. I don't care if it's creek, if it's, you know, whatever creek, down lake, you know, up the Gravois, Soap Creek, any of them on the north side or the south side. You can go back in them creeks and fish it just like you would fish way up the river.
There's still
Or
fish,
way up the
there's still
gravels.
gonna be fish up there.
They're still there. I mean, still you can go shallow. So as far as saying the best part or how they're different, it's still a lake. You'd be surprised. I can go catch a fish in 2 foot of water, you know, down around Shawnee Bend, one of the big creeks there. Go back there, and then I can run up to 60-mile mark and go do the exact same thing, catch the exact same
Yeah,
fish, not same fish, but same setup fish in the exact same
got it.
deal. In the summer, it's a lot alike. Now, once we start progressing late into
It's
August,
gonna
we start to
change.
cool down, we
Yeah.
have cool nights. Now, it's a total different game because your creek arms, river arms, just like spring, they start to change quicker than the big body of water. They'll cool down quicker. The shad migration will start earlier up the river arms, and then it works its way down. Compared to just like the spring.
Yeah.
Spring warms up, it turns on quicker. So that when you have weather changes, that's when the different arms fish differently than midsummer.
Got it.
You know,
My final zinger.
yeah.
I gotta go over here and take a peek.
All right.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
So, if you could only go out on the lake with one bait, year round, and especially in summertime,
Yep.
but one bait, year round, what would that bait be?
Crocagator half-ounce zapper jig, trailed up with the swamp bug trailer. I tear the legs off. I can swim this, and I will be swimming this here for the next month at least. I can swim this on main lake docks, down by the dam, around Shawnee, in the Glaze, all the way up the racetrack, Lynn Creek, Nangwas. I can swim it along docks and catch a lot of fish on big main lake docks over 50, 70 foot of water. Or I can take this same bait, I can go up to a bluff and bounce it down bluff shelves and catch plenty of fish. Or I can go back to 2 foot of water and flip this jig all day long and probably catch some dandies too. So this one setup, I can fish. If you give me one rod, it'd be this setup with that jig, that trailer, and anywhere on the lake, and I guarantee you I'm gonna catch some fish.
What about,
On 3 or 4 different patterns using this same jig.
what about multiple times during the year? So, I'm asking, so that's awesome. And by the way, we didn't even talk about bluff ledges tonight. I know you love bluff ledges, and I
They've
know.
kind of went away. They're a lot with the current, you know,
Yeah.
because once we current, because you're using these offsets in the bluffs or the breaks or the indentation or the outs of current diversions, I guess. Once that shuts out, it's just like everything else. They just spread out. They're all over. You can fish a bluff for 4 miles and not catch a fish, or you can fish a bluff for 50 foot and catch 6 of them. It's it's just right now.
Right.
Earlier in the year, different. As far as all year, Bob, this same jig setup, I might change the color.
Yeah.
A little bit in the winter, more brown, purple. Trailer.
Still half ounce?
Still half ounce, yeah. I mean, 3/8 in the winter. I'll throw 3/8 quite a bit in the winter, but I've gotten to where I like the half ounce quite a bit.
Yeah.
Even in the winter. It might depend on what trailer I'm throwing, on the size. If I'm really slowing down, it's really, really cold, I'll go to the 3/8 with just like a ring crawl, something real subtle, real slow, not a lot of movement, just like the crawfish in the winter. And I'll throw and drag that compared to if there's a little bit of action, a little bit of warmth in the water, and I'll throw something with a little more action like the tail.
So if you had one bait for the entire year, it would be a jig. It'd be a crocagator,
If I
half
have
ounce
one-
or 3/8 ounce jig.
Yeah, if I only have one bait for the entire year, it would have to be a jig.
Right.
Because I can throw it when the water's 36 degrees, and I can throw it when it's 86 degrees right now. And 50, 60 degrees it catches them too. So one jig, I don't know how you would pick a different bait than
No,
a jig
I wouldn't.
for the entire 12 months of the year.
I agree.
Throughout the year, there's baits that shine for a month.
Right.
Absolutely. But like now, am I gonna go throw a suspended jerkbait out there?
No.
On a point, right? I probably
And I'm
not.
just talking about
I mean-
one bait throughout the
Right,
entire
exactly.
year. Yes.
A-rig, I ain't
Yeah,
gonna
there's,
catch nothing on A-rig right
there's
now.
times during the year where
But
different baits.
throughout the 12 months of the year,
Right.
if you want one bait, just tie your jig on.
Yeah.
Tie your a half ounce crocodile jig. Maybe not this necessarily color. I like this because of bluegill, but just a natural color. Don't get too crazy with colors.
Got it.
Green pumpkin and something.
Cool.
A different flash, different trailer, and go to work.
Love it.
Keep it simple. We talk a lot of tournament anglers, but a lot of people aren't tournament anglers.
No.
They're just getting into bass fishing. Don't have the
I
interest.
represent the average fisherman because I am the
They
average
just want to
fisherman.
fish. They're introducing your kids to it.
Yeah.
I recommend taking kids out fishing. If it's their first time, don't fish. just pay attention to them. Help them, show them, teach them to cast, retrieve, help them make a big deal out of their fish catches. The whole deal of introducing kids is making it enjoyable. If they go out there and they don't have a good time, they're not going to want to go.
Yeah.
But if you can introduce them and get them hooked on fishing, it's something the whole families can do. Your wives, believe me, women, if you don't fish with your husbands, go out and experience it a little bit. If your husbands don't have the time or the patience, book Denise, because Denise will take you out and show you the basics, and she will show you how much fun it can be.
Yeah.
Believe me, Denise is more into
Teaching.
this stuff right now than I probably am, you know, and she's doing very good, and she will teach you. And the thing she works on is knot tying, rod and reel setup, simple baits, how to cast them, how to work them, you know, the very basic, simple stuff that all of us so-called pros and really experienced guys, when it gets tough and it gets hard, what do? We slow down, we back up, we go back to the basics.
Right.
And that's what Denise she really concentrates on with new anglers.
And the website to
Yeah.
book Denise.
Yeah,
And you know, I've fished with Denise before.
Yeah.
Denise is freaking awesome, so you don't have to be a female.
No.
You can be just a bass fisherman. Denise knows what's going on.
Yeah.
But if you want your wife or significant other or whatever to get
Or even,
their
or
kids.
guys, there's a lot of guys out there that just
Yeah.
haven't had time. They've been spending all their life working, and now they're 60 years old, and now they're going to retire and they want to learn to
Right.
fish. Well, it takes more than a year to learn to fish. You gotta get someone that's going to break this down.
I've been doing this for 9 years and I
Yeah.
still haven't figured it out.
You know what I'm saying?
Like I said, I represent the average fisherman because I am the average fisherman.
But, you know,
So
Denise's phone number
what's your website again?
It's James Dill Guide Service, and that's for both.
For you and Denise.
And myself, you know. 573-204-9005 is my number. 314-226-3099 is Denise. Just call us. We'll set up a trip. And one of the first things we'll do is ask you, you know, not necessarily your skill level, but what do you want to do? You want
Right.
bass fish? You want crappie fish? Or you want to go catch a big one or two?
Right.
You want to catch a lot of fish? Do you want to learn to jig fish, shake your head, bluff fish, point fish, brush fish, topwater? We'll design the trip around what you're wanting to get out of it, not necessarily this is what I go and do. You know
That's
if you get what I'm
perfect. So
saying.
you tailor it. You're flexible.
Yeah, exactly. We
You're flexible.
tailor the trip to exactly what you want to do or your skill level, so you have a successful trip. If you've never flipped a dock, we're not going to take you to the back and say flip into that boat slip 6 foot. That's you know, unless you want to learn that. But if you want to go catch some fish, we're going to go do some other things.
I would probably have to
Yeah.
book you for 30 trips for all
Well-
the things I need to learn.
You'd be surprised. Everyone out there, you'd be surprised if you spend one day on your boat doing nothing but flipping. By the end of the day, you're going to say, "This ain't so hard. I can do this.
That's
I can do
awesome.
this." You know.
That's awesome,
So,
Jim. I appreciate
you know.
that. Guys, any final questions? We've had Jim for,
Good. Thanks, Rob.
Jim Dill.
Thanks for back out there.
You're,
Real quick.
You're
I know
awesome, dude.
Bass and Bob is probably the best bass fishing resource out there. I do a fishing report weekly, bi-weekly, and you can get to it on YouTube and just punch in Croc-O-Gator. No dashes, just straight letter, just Croc-O-Gator on YouTube. And my fishing report will come up there, and I keep you up to date to what's going on every week, all around the entire lake, different patterns, different things, techniques, restaurants, you name it. If hotels, if we can help you, just like Bass and Bob's total resource for the lake area,
Right.
that's what we're here to do, is to help everybody enjoy Lake of the Ozarks.
Jim, you are awesome, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your hanging with bassandbob.com for 9 years now.
I appreciate that.
And doing everything
I
you do to support us.
I appreciate the feedback, I appreciate the
Yeah.
compliments, but, I mean, what you've done is,
It's what we've done.
it is what we've done, but the small things you do, you know, at the tournaments
Right.
and the resources is uncomparable to anywhere else
Yeah.
in the entire country. And that's why I think new intel, what is it called?
Right, fish intel, yeah.
Around, everyone was like, geez, I need to, and I'm like, I wish there was a Bass and Bob at Truman
Right.
or Table Rock, but, well, now there is.
We got
So-
15 lakes, we're up to 15 lakes now,
15
or something
lakes.
like
So
that?
anywhere you go in the
That's
country,
going-
check out and see if Bass Intel
Yeah.
has got a lake there, because it's gonna be set up just like
Bob.
Bass and Bob, to where you can find the resources. And that's what I always say when I go to a new lake, just somebody give me a clue.
Right,
Give
right.
me a clue, so
Exactly.
I'm not out here driving around wondering what I got. Just give me a clue, and then I can go from there. And that's
Yeah.
what Fish Intel does.
I appreciate
and all
that, Jim.
these guys, so.
I appreciate it.
other than that,
Thank you so.
I appreciate you, Bob.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you
Everybody out there.
so much for your support for all these years. And you are just a wealth of knowledge, and thank you for sharing that with all these Bass and Bob members. I appreciate it.
I appreciate everybody watching.
All right, man. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.